Just kind of waiting to make sure that we get all set online here. I think we're getting there. I don't know if anybody will join on me live, but hopefully you'll be watching this later. What is up, church? Hey, it is April 15th, 14th. Oh my goodness. It's April 14th. I guess like everybody else, days are creeping up on me and merging together. Hey, I am so glad that you're here joining with me, whether you're watching this later or whatever else. I just wanted to share some things with you that I've been thinking about over the last few days, yesterday and today especially. Especially as I lead up to where we're going to go with our next sermon series. And so I really hope that you continue tracking with us. I know that we are at least a couple more weeks of gathering as a scattered church, right? So we are going to gather as scattered across our community, across the world, across our state. And so my hope is that as we continue to do so over the next couple of weeks, that you continue to track with us. And we're going to start a new series this Sunday called Devoted, and I think it's a perfect time for us to do that as we figure out what it means to truly be devoted to Christ, and how we do that. And let me tell you something, just right off the bat, this is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial, right? We're not writing a list of guidelines and steps that you need to do. Though we may incorporate some things into our life, following Jesus and being devoted to Jesus does not mean that we have this list of do's and don'ts that we have to check off to. It's about into a relationship with Him, right? And so the same way that we enter into a relationship with our friends, with our family, with our spouses, we're going to look to see what does it mean to enter into a relationship with Jesus. And so we're going to be doing that over the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to gather back together, and we'll be able to do that before we get done with that study. But we're going to do that. And what that also enables us to do is to have these talks later on during the week, geared towards that. We're going to send out some stuff if you're a part of a small group, and I hope that you are. In your Zoom meetings, there'll be some questions for you guys to kind of go over and we'll put them also on our website. And so we're figuring a page that makes it easy for you to get to every week, to kind of, number one, recap what we talked about on Sunday, see some of the things that we talk about throughout the week, and then have some questions that you're going to be able to go through either by yourself, with your family, or with your small group. And you can do them one of those ways or multiples of those ways. And so I hope that you track along with us, that you stick with us and go there to be with us. And I'm just going to be honest with you, is that there were had when I started doing this, but because of my thoughts the last couple of days, I'm going to try to let go of my expectations. And here's why. Because I think sometimes our expectations get in the way of what God wants to do. Right? We expect something to happen. Right? And so if I was to ask you a question this way, I might ask you, what do you expect Jesus to do? What do you expect God to do in your life? And I think all of us are going to have some kind of answers to that. And some of them may be, man, I'm expecting God to cure some illness that I have. To wipe out the virus that's going across our world right now. I have an expectation that God's going to rebuild my relationships, or an expectation that Jesus is going to somehow fix whatever is wrong with my thinking, whatever I'm doing. That Jesus is going to squash enemies, to change the world. And while I think that Jesus has the ability to do all of those things, if our expectation is of Jesus as a physician and we don't get the healing that we expect, I think sometimes what that does is it causes us to turn around and walk in an opposite direction of where Jesus is leading us and wanting us to go. And even with the greatest of intentions, we sometimes miss Jesus. And I say that because as I've been tracking along, especially over the week leading up to Easter, continuing after that and just kind of looking at some of the experiences that Jesus' disciples had after the resurrection. And one of those is found in the 24th chapter of Luke. And it's verses 13 through 35. And I'm just going to read some of that. I'm going to share it, hopefully up here on the screen. Hopefully you're able to see this. But we're going to read some of it and then just talk about it. Okay, Luke 24, verse 13 says, that very day, two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other about these things that had happened. Right. And so just a time out, they were talking about the week before. Right. They were probably talking about how great it was that Jesus marched in all the way up to the time where Jesus got crucified and buried. Right. That there were some strange things happening. Right. They were probably talking about all that. And while they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing them. Right? So they're having this discussion of what had just happened. Jesus pops onto the scene and begins walking with them, talking with them. And since they're disciples of his, my guess is that they were in Jerusalem for this whole time of Jesus walking in and out, back to Bethany, back into Jerusalem, overturning tables, teaching on what it means to be a follower of his, seeing him in his trials and his crucifixion, right? That they would have known what he looked like. They would have probably understood, recognized what he sounded like, but they didn't see him here. And I think we're going to get an answer here, right? Verse 17 says, and he said to them, what is this conversation that you're holding with each other as you walk? And they stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened here in these days? Are you the only one who doesn't know? Are you the only one who didn't see what's happened? And so Jesus, right, curiosity probably spiked, wanted to hear them actually say it out loud. And he said to them, what things? And they said, concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. Verse 21, I think, is very telling. It says, but we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yet, and besides all this, it is now the third day since these things happened. Moreover, some of the women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early in the morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said. But him, they did not see. Man, and as I look at this, I see a few things. One is that there's a group of guys who have an agenda. What's that agenda? I don't know. But I have a guess. I have a guess that agenda was that they would go into Jerusalem and that during this week, a new king would be crowned. A new king would sit on a throne. And what that would mean is that the world around them, the culture around them would change. Probably what it really meant was that Rome would no longer have control over them. That's probably what they were thinking. And it didn't happen. And because it didn't happen, they didn't probably recognize the fact that the veil had torn between that served as the barrier between God and the nation of Israel, between God and his people, between God and the rest of the world. That bridge that was being made, right? The opening of the doors to say God is going to be available to you. No longer do you have to sit separated from him, but now you can come in to him. In fact, not just come in, but come into you. They probably missed the fact that the sacrifices that they had to give over and over and over again were no longer going to have to be offered because Jesus said, this deal, it's finished. That's what he said before he died. It's finished. All the prices have been paid. Whatever that guilt and that anxiety and that hurt that you're carrying along with you, you no longer have to carry anymore. Man, I'm thinking that these two had an agenda. These disciples had an agenda in much the same way that you and I come to Jesus with an agenda. We need something fixed. And they were hoping that Jesus was going to be the one to fix whatever it is that they needed to have fixed. And because they had an agenda, their expectation wasn't met. But that doesn't mean that God wasn't doing what he was always planning on doing. Met, but God's doing something even better. And I wonder how many times my expectations, my agendas get in the way of me seeing Jesus. Even when they're told, even when they say, right, even in their sharing of the fact that the tomb was empty, the people that said they were alive, they're still moving back. Their agenda, their expectations didn't get met, and so they're just back to their regular agenda. As we continue on, right, I think it's pretty cool, Jesus' response, right? As they say that things didn't happen that we wanted to happen. He says this. He says, "O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe that all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and enter in his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them all the scriptures concerning himself." Jesus says, don't you know? You've missed the point. You've probably missed the point from the time that you were ever first shared scriptures. You've probably missed the point ever since you began memorizing what the prophets have said. You've missed the point when your parents were telling you. In fact, your parents have probably missed the point as well. Those people who introduced you to Jesus probably missed the point as well. I wonder how many of us missed the point. And not because we intended to, but because somebody else missed the point as well, and they shared us to there. What's amazing is that Jesus says everything that God has said that was going to happen has happened. There was going to be suffering so that you could be brought back. The Messiah was going to take on your suffering so that you could be brought back. The fact that in the midst of the brokenness, God's kingdom was going to live. Look, the nation of Israel, even as God created the nation of Israel, that now had a ruler over the top of them, which came about mostly, if we don't have time to get into it, but because of their own choices, that they were never told that the rest of the world was just going to all of a sudden be fixed. That they were going to, because they would follow the decrees and the way of God, because they would enter into a relationship with God, that their lives would be changed so much so that it would be an influence on the rest of the people. And Jesus is saying, this is the same thing that I want to do. But you missed it because you had an agenda of freedom. You had an agenda of, let me go where I want to go. You had an agenda of, I need to be fixed. And instead, you forgot that God just wanted to be with you. And your expectation of him fixing whatever you thought was needing to be fixed. Jesus says, I just simply want to do what I've promised you. That you can enter into a new kingdom. That you can find a way of peace. So Jesus continues talking with them, and he shares with them the truth, and maybe refixes their expectations, right? And then he breaks bread. And at the moment they break bread, that he breaks bread, they recognize who he is. Friends, I hope that sometime during these talks, these chats, your time of maybe having a little bit more time to read the Bible and search it yourself, maybe in the time that you're high-fiving as we are doing as a church, right, connecting with 5 people every week, I pray that you get a little bit closer to Jesus. That somehow, some way, your expectations of what God is going to do or is supposed to do change, so that you can realize that there is an empty tomb that is still empty. That there is a king who got onto a throne, but he didn't get on a throne the way that we expected him to. He doesn't come to fix our agendas or to cross off the list that our agendas have created, but to simply be. And that simply being is in a relationship with you and with me. And I pray that over the next few days, over the next few weeks, that we become a little bit more at peace with the life that pushes in on us. That we become a little bit more at peace with the struggles that we're going to have. And that we begin to see that God has formed a kingdom. And that kingdom is represented by his church, right? Us, his people. And one of the glaring characteristics of that is that, especially for a whole Christian church, right? We live them out by our values. We say, number one, that we're going to be sojourners of faith. We're going to walk this together. And so when you're walking on that road, the expectation isn't that you get there by yourself. It's that we walk that together. And the expectation isn't that we're there yet. We all know that we have another step to take, and we all have agendas and expectations that we need to let go of. And we want to do that. We need each other to help to do that. So we are going to be sojourners of faith. Number 2 is that we are going to be a people of open arms. And so if you are somebody who says, I don't even know where I'm at yet. Open arms. We get that. We are broken as well. And so there's hangups, there's hurts, there's insecurities, there's all kinds of things that you may be tracking along with right now today. And you think that because of that, God doesn't want to see me. Man, I could tell you that there is nothing further away from the truth than that. God wants you to be with him. And man, we want to be a people with open arms that says, we love you no matter what you think or what your expectations of how Jesus is going to respond to you. We hope that because our next value is that we're a prism of Jesus, that you begin to understand that there is grace and truth wrapped up in Jesus, and that in that there is a wonderful, wonderful power of love. And we're going to share that as much as we can, even in times when we're apart. And so we're going to do those things. And number 4 is that we're going to have an impact on our community. And so if you are a person who is in need, I'm praying that we get to hear that. If you're in need, whether you're a member of Holt Christian Church or not, I'm going to ask you to contact us. You can send something in one of these comments. You can send a messenger thing. You can go to holtchristian.org and go to the connect with us page, and there'll be a way to get anything to us. But if you're a person in need, we want to help. But here's the other flip side of that. If you're a person of means, and we're going to ask you to partner with us. And so if you're a person of means right now, you just got a stimulus check and you say, man, I don't really need this. I want to bless somebody else. If you want to partner with us, you just go to holtchristian.org, click on our giving tab. You can partner with us. We're going to be a people who are connecting others with Jesus. We are going to connect people with Jesus. And so if you want to partner with us in doing that, we encourage you to do that. So if you're a person in need, we want to help. If you're a person of means, we're going to ask you to partner with us. And we're going to go and bust out some of our agendas. We're going to throw apart some of our expectations so that we can truly see that the empty tomb means that Jesus is alive, and that has an amazing impact on the rest of our lives. So I hope you track with us so that we can see what that really, really means. Hey, I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. And hey, high five each other. All right. See you later.